everyone. It's Casey Washington, and it is Sunday. It is Sunday, March 12th. Yes, to think about it for a second. And it's that daylight savings time. But anyway, I'm Casey Washington from Teach and Take Time for You. And something has been on my mind lately, and I want to speak about it just for a few minutes, maybe a little more than a few minutes. I often read about administrators, school administrators, who are just so stressed and so burned out that they think that I just can't do this anymore, right? And, I understand. I was a former teacher, former assistant principal, and I ended my career as a principal. I retired and then pulled back into the work space. But I see this a lot on Facebook posts in different principal groups. And I'm seeing it more and more. People are just like, I can't do this anymore. But I can't do it anymore, but I don't know what to do next. And I don't know where I'll land. And, people they have lives, they have livelihoods, they have families that they have to take care of. So there are many things that are stopping people sometimes from walking away from whatever it is that is making them stressed or getting them to that space of, I can't do this anymore. So I just want to say that there is life after school leadership. And I'm just going to be vulnerable and tell my story a little bit. So maybe someone will hear that and that would give them a little boost that, this is not the end all, this is not the be all, that there is life after school leadership, there's work after school leadership. So I'm going to tell a little bit about myself. I worked in an urban school district for over 20, it's really 27 years because I did sub for a year. I started out as a teacher, and then I worked my way up to an assistant principal, and then I was a principal for 8 years in a very tough school with a lot of issues. So I understand what it's like to be stressed up to here. I understand what it's like to be an administrator and the grind that uh, is there for all administrators, whether you're an assistant principal or principal. But when you're a principal, the buck stops with you. And I understand when people say, the district is mandating certain things that I don't necessarily agree with, or they don't have the funding for it. And then you're just being pulled in so many different directions. I understand the politics of being an administrator and how you have to, you have many sides you have to play and who's who and who are the players and all of that stuff. I get it. I get it. And guess what? I don't miss it. But anyway, I do understand that, you have to pay the bills. You need a roof over your head. So, just a little bit about my story and how I ended up as a former principal and kind of semi-retired or whatever my life is right now. But I, as I said, I taught for some years. I became an assistant principal and then I became a principal. But in 2016, late 2016, almost September, I actually lost my job. Yes. Due to politics and all kinds of stuff. I actually lost my job. But at the time I was also very stressed. Um, but when I lost my job, I was at a loss. I really was. I didn't know what I was going to do next. And there was no money coming in. But fortunately, I was a good saver. So I had some money saved up for that rainy day. I didn't know that rainy day was going to come when it came, but it did come, and I had to regroup. And not only that, I had to battle that sense of failure when you lose your job, and it's really not through any fault of your own. Um, you've given your all, you've given 100% to your school, to your students, your community, your staff. You have given and given everything possible. And then you're kind of blindsided by politics. Doesn't happen that way to everybody, but it happened to me. And I was like, this is my career. This is my livelihood. What do I do next? Where do I even start? Because I have built everything around being an educator in a public school system. And all I can say is that I was at a loss. I was at a loss. But I knew that I had to get my ish together because I had a house note, I had a car note. I was helping to take care of caretaking with family members and things like that, health insurance, all of that stuff just came into play. You know, the utilities, keeping the lights on, keeping the gas on. And I had to get myself in gear. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I knew I had skills to work in a public school. So I was like, okay, I got my resume together based on my experience as a school administrator, my experience as an educator, and I started applying to different administrative positions in other school districts. I also didn't have age on my side, so that's out there. Hey, I'm gonna put it out there because it's real. I had, I was over 50, so I cost a lot of money for some districts based on my experience and my age. But I put out the applications. I was on different school sites, different district sites, looking for principalships, administrative positions within at the district level, even assistant principal positions. I needed a job, but guess what? I was not getting any responses. I was not. My district and suburban areas. Sometimes it can be a very tight district. As far as the job market and stuff, and sometimes it's like we don't take people from outside of the school systems, especially in the suburbs. We build from within. So I wasn't really getting a lot of response. I had a couple of interviews, but what I did learn is that sometimes every position isn't for you. Every school district is not for you, and that's okay. So what I learned is don't just take something because it's offered. So I did say no to a couple of offers, and it was hard to say no because, again, in the back of my mind, I'm like, bills, you got bills, girl, you got bills, pay them bills. You got to pay the bills. You got to eat. You got to have food in that refrigerator. You have a significant other who eats, even though they have a job too. But you want to contribute. Um, so I had to start thinking about outside of the box of working in a school. I had to start thinking about all of the skills that I actually gained by working in schools, working as an administrator, working as a teacher, all of these skills that we don't necessarily think will fit in the outside world of education, that will fit in the corporate space. I must admit that before I started teaching, I did have corporate experience. So I kind of knew what they were looking for. But I thought my niche was education and in the schools. And that's where I thought I could make the biggest difference by working in schools. So I had to shift gears. I'm looking online, I'm looking on LinkedIn, I'm looking on, like I said, district websites, I'm looking on Indeed, but it just wasn't biting. But, but, there's a but. So I had to redo my resume. I had to do it based on skills. Here's administrative skills, here's managerial skills, here's teaching skills, here's communication skills. Here's instructional design skills, curriculum design, things like that, that you don't necessarily think about. I want you to think about everything that you do in your position as a school administrator. You're communicating with parents, you're writing newsletters, you may be even writing press releases sometimes. You're writing letters, communication letters to parents, to community members, to organizations. You're conducting meetings, you're facilitating workshops, you're designing workshops, you're you're managing a staff of how many? Most times schools have 20 or more people working there. 20. In my school, we had 50. I had 50 staff members. So I managed 50 staff members. Thinking about it, you are the CEO of that school. If you're the assistant principal, then you're the COO of that principal of that school. You are um, directing people to do certain things. You're giving evaluations. You're managing a budget. Every school has a budget, and you have to make that budget balance every year. You're doing that. You're interviewing people, so you have your human relations skills, that's your HR skills. So think broad, y'all. Think broad, not narrow, broad, and all of those skills that you can do. Look on LinkedIn. Start looking at some of the other positions that are in these educational companies like ed tech, publishing, educational publishing companies. They're often looking for people who've had experience in schools. There are corporations that have whole training departments where you could fit in, all of that. So I actually, when I got that out of my head that I had to work in a school or I had to work in a school district, I actually landed a position with an educational publisher as a professional learning consultant, where I did have to learn their curriculum, but I traveled to different school districts training teachers and training administrators on how to use the curriculum for this company. And the good thing about that is I got to go to other school districts in other states, rural and urban, to see what was going on in those schools. So that even increased my knowledge and experience within, education. I'm learning about how things work in different areas of the country, things like that. Hey, you look into those. Don't Educational companies make a lot of money off of schools. So, why don't you make some money working for them if you have to leave your job? Now, it may not always, some of these things may not always pay as much as being an administrator. However, what it does pay is peace of mind. What it does pay is better health. The second thing that I ended up doing, I ended up being what was it? A teacher, student teacher. No, you can't even think of the name of the position. But I was that person who went to evaluate and observe the student teachers. I was working through the University of Illinois, and I had 7 or 8 student teachers that I actually worked with. So, it was a part of training up the next generation of educators. Also visiting other schools and seeing what's going on in those schools, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Sometimes you walk in schools and you're like, oh, so that's what you all are doing. So let me tell my student teacher, my little proteges, it's not like that in every school. And here's what you can control and what you can't control. So think about, working with universities. They need you. They need your skill. You came right out of the school. Sometimes people who are working in those positions at the university haven't been in the schools in a long time. So those universities are looking for people with a different perspective. And so after I worked with them for a couple of years, I ended up leaving that position, but that was due to health reasons. But after that, by the grace of God, I'm still here. I started working for an a not-for-profit educational agency as an instructional coach. The position that I'm in, I actually train tutors how to work with students within our school district here. Um, and I also do some coaching as far as their professional, with their professional skills, their career goals. Sometimes they're young, so they're coming straight out of college or high school. So sometimes I'm coaching them on personal stuff, but it's okay, like life coaching stuff. But what I'm here to say, I love this job. I do. What I love is that not only have I built on the skills that I learned as an educator, as a school administrator, because I'm going in schools also. So, I'm seeing things as an administrator sometimes where I can really coach my tutors about how schools work. Every school is different, but here again, things you can control and things you can't control. You're here to work with the kids, so that's what we're going to focus on. What I'm here to say, after all of that, just to give you a little background and vulnerability, because I had to work up to this confidence. Because when I lost my job, I mean, I've kind of lost my confidence. I often talk about leadership trauma and that fear of failure and that shame and that humiliation. I was there. I was there. So I had to work my way back. Um, so you can work your way back too if things are just not going the way you want them to go. Things are just overwhelming, and you're human, and that's okay that they're overwhelming. And I know sometimes people will say, um, remember your why, remember your purpose. And yes, you can remember your why you're there, for the kids and everything. But sometimes your why or your purpose will change. And that might not be your why or your purpose anymore. And it might be a sign that it's time to move on and go somewhere else. That's life. That is life. And so I don't want you to get stuck in that mode of, I'm abandoning people, because you're really not abandoning people. You can't give them your 100% and your all when you have nothing left or you're just totally burnt out. You can continue to grow by finding out what's my next move, planning it out. If you want to leave, you have to be intentional. I wasn't able to be intentional because I didn't have that time and space to be intentional because I lost everything so quickly. But what I have learned is that yes, you need to be intentional. And by being intentional, you are taking the time to figure out what you want to do, what you're passionate about. You're figuring out, okay, here are my skills. I mean, you're listing them out. You look at those verbs. When you look at job descriptions, there are these verbs here, arrange, directed, manage, communicated, collaborated, all those verbs. Take a look and you start looking at your job description now and you see where it comes together. Rewrite that resume, not necessarily for a job at another school. Broaden your horizons. Corporations, not for profit, um, universities. Broaden your horizons because you have the skills. You have the skills. Through all of those jobs that I had, and I had to find myself, but all of those jobs I had, I developed and I grew. I grew new skills. I grew new confidence. I grew instructional design skills. I grew coaching skills. I already had the research skills because that's what we do. I had the data skills, which I could apply in the new job and things that I'm looking at. And more importantly, I thrived. I wasn't stuck. I wasn't feeling like, oh my God, I don't want to get out the bed today. I didn't feel like, oh God, how high is my blood pressure today? I didn't have to come home and have that daily glass of red wine. I didn't have to do that anymore. And when I say I thrived, not only did I have a job that I really enjoyed, I also thrived because I got to do some things that I really love to do. I started a blog, the Teach and Take Time for You. I started a different blog. Um, I also uh, self-published books, 3 books, and I got healthy. More importantly, I got healthy, emotionally healthy, psychologically healthy, physically healthier. Still got some stuff to work on. Healthier, but I started to think about me, family, and those things that are really, really important and that keep you going because you could lose everything. And who's going to be standing behind you or standing with you? Your immediate family and your friends that matter. But more importantly, you matter. So I just want you to know there is life after school leadership. There is life after all of that hard work. There's life after that grind, and that you will be okay if you make that decision that I've had enough and I must move on. You will be okay. So I know that was a lot, but it was on my heart because I keep seeing people who are really struggling. And I just want you all to know there are people out here that you can talk to, that people who have had that experience and they kept going and they're still here and they're thriving. So reach out to those people. Reach out to me. I am available. You can email me at cwashington at teachandtaketimeforyou.com. Teach and take time for you. Teach, take time, the number 4 and you.com. C. Washington. I am here for you all to vent or just kind of, brainstorm. It's okay. Sometimes you need that. And it's Sunday, and I lost an hour of sleep. So did most of you. So, take the rest of your day and enjoy it and think about all those things I just said and make yourself a priority. That's me, Casey Washington from Teach and Take Time for You. Have a great day.